Hey, there's some serious last act spoilers in this biatch, so don't watch it unless you've seen the movie, or just really don't care, but you really should watch it, because it's awesome. It's really great, and yeah, just go watch it, please, and then come back. Okay, bye. Howdy, I'm Professor Lunar, digital theorist and chronic sad boy. I've had time to regulate my emotions on a certain purple rabbit and how masterfully his character arc was handled. Oh, man. Isn't she lovely? I got a whole other tear-filled video on Jack coming up because the layers of his story are something very special that I've just never seen before. But it's those layers that I'm actually going to talk about today because it really has something... There's layers to the storytelling of Amazing Digital Circus and all its most important plot points that really fill different tiers. And that's why there's a lot of different discussion on the interpretation of things, and that's purposeful. I never really thought I'd be making a video like this because, Amazing Digital Circus before this finale was, it was fine for me. It was a show. I knew how important it was to the indie community. I kept up with it from the beginning, and I liked it enough, but it wasn't anything super special to me until this final act. Seeing it in theaters and just everything going on around it, putting it all together, I really cemented in me Gooseworks' writing methodology, I think. And it resonated with me because I feel like we have similar ideas in how we write to go about characters. Not tooting my own horn here. Gooseworks is far and away above me, I think, in at least writing in some ways, at least for now. But it really, I felt like I got what they were going for with some of this stuff. So I just thought I'd put my 2 cents in, specifically on Abstraction, because I think I get the poetry of it and the realism of it as well. We're going to be talking about layers, because that's really important in writing in general, but specifically the Amazing Digital Circus. In a way, you could say it's even the theming, just like the layers of, the real life cast, in the real world, and then the dichotomy of the digital cast, who's functionally separate entities now. There are realism layers, like, the straight up plot. There's character-based layers, and then there's the author's intent layers, which is the hardest part, obviously, and I think that's the most fun to interpret. So we're going to look a little bit into some of those, specifically with Abstraction. At a very base level, what the kids understand in the theaters, Abstraction is you go crazy and you get goopy. You get yeeted into the basement. It's basically described as your mind files, becoming too big for their britches. Your brain is literally, your digital brain, it's just like corruption in a regular, any kind of file. All the data just starts to spread out, it gets too complicated, too much emotion, too much feelings. You're not anchored. You don't have a physical anchor, and you just kind of blah, 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 blah. It's not entirely intentional, but there is a level to it where you feel yourself slipping, and you just kind of let it go. And it's not something you can fully control because you're in a mindset, but that fills into the more poetic layer of it. It's obvious, even on a surface level, as it plays, pretty importantly to the plot, that Abstraction has a lot to do with, losing oneself mentally, either through stress or just the, being in out of your body too long has physical effects, and that's kind of a surface level part of it too. But then obviously there's the character-driven part of each person's individual mental state. But there is, more deeper parts to it, and people have very much caught on to the somewhat, suicide metaphor of specifically Jax's Abstraction, but all of them really, how they kind of knew it was coming, and it had a lot to do with, not having a connection with those around you. That anchor isn't just in you, it's in the people around you, and when you let that go, it definitely makes it a lot harder. Now, a lot of people say that suicide interpretation of it is, that's it, that's the metaphor, and they're not entirely wrong, because that is definitely part of it. But again, there's layers to these things, and it's not entirely cut in stone what Abstraction is fully meant to be, obviously, if you think about it for a minute. Remember that Amazing Digital Circus is very character-based, and I believe Abstraction, metaphorically at least, has a lot to do with the individual characters' endings rather than just a straight-up, this is what it is. Kaufmo, for example, it was rooted more in that want to escape. He thought he had a way out, and it came to his demise, in a way. Ribbit, it was rooted in just not having anyone there anymore, especially somebody who was very close to her. She kind of lost that meaning to stick around in a way, but I don't think it's as much of a self-ending thing as it was with Jax, in a way where it was just, he didn't feel like he could figure things out anymore. So things even though, lore-wise, straight up in the story, Abstraction is all the same, it's, physically, I think per character, it has a different meaning. Which, if that were the case, were there ever to be, an Abstraction, I believe it would be on a per character bias, or basis, I should say. I've seen that beautiful scene brought up where, Pomni is going through Jack's abstracting mind and seeing, the different parts of him. And I've seen it talked about how they were disappearing. That was him. That was the last bit of him just wiping out. And, that is definitely, I think, that like an intentional interpretation of. That's a part that you're supposed to see. But I don't think it fully plays into the realism aspect of it, if that makes sense. Whereas, you're supposed to feel that on the metaphor-wise, but you're not supposed to take it at complete face value. And I know this sounds like coping. It's okay. This is my cope factory. This is my glaze factory. It's my goddamn donut factory, and I can glaze and cope as much as I want. I think it's realistic coping, though. I think I sort of am tapping into Goose's mind just a tad bit. And if I'm not, that's fine. I'm just another one of the losers anyway. And when you're looking at just the full, flat-out plot realism aspect of it, that layer at the top, Unabstraction is not that far-fetched of an idea. All the resources are right there. They have as much time as they want. And, you could say, eventually the server, whatever they're being run on, will get cut off. That is true. But I do believe time compression could be as much as they want. They could be living in a blip for as long as they want. So they functionally have as much time as they want. And you know how the old saying goes, you give a monkey infinite time, he could write Shakespeare, or he could make me. Maybe that is what happened to me. But anyway, so they have all that time in the world. They have access to Kane, who has access to almost functionally the internet. I believe it's undeniable. If they wanted, they could make copies of everybody who abstracted. Now, that would not be the same them. And I am positive they wouldn't be cool with that. At least, in the long run, I don't think they would be cool with that. They do, however, have access to a certain golden doggo named Scratch. Now, we don't know much about this guy. We don't know, really anything. But we do know that he's got an intellect, at least on the level of King, or probably higher. He made the mind files. He definitely could do something. And if we're going from a pure writing standpoint, this is, now a surface level writing standpoint, let me tell you. A story plot basis. But on that level, this would be the way to go. You copy Scratch's brain down. He wouldn't be the same Scratch that abstracted. I do think Scratch was the first abstraction, and that's why, he couldn't have done this in the first place. But I believe he would have at least an idea of unabstraction in some way. Now, what that would look like, man, I don't know. I know, going on the character basis, that how Goose likes to write characters, I think it would be a little bit different for each character. There would be stuff related to who they were and how, their abstraction really occurred. I hate that word. It's so autistic, but I also love it. But yeah, it would have something to do with that, and then, it'd just be taking the mind files, putting them back together, having to stitch through all the scattered data. Just corrupted data like that is possible in real life, and they would just go something like that. Of course, it's on a brain scale, but fiction. But that's the least important part, to be honest, because what it really comes down to is the metaphorical part of it and the story writing aspect, because that's what made this whole special for me. If it was just a story based on, computer brains were lost, blah, 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 it wouldn't have hit as hard. I still would have been sad, because I love Jax. But I would have been like, it's whatevs. What was important about the Amazing Digital Circus was the story within the story, and Jax was a catalyst for that, and a really good one. And, obviously, just bringing him back would not have been a good... I don't think it would have been a great way to end the story. And I don't want... I could go with the season 2, but I really think ending it where it was a special place. And that's because there isn't a definitive future. The characters don't know where they're going, and neither do we, and that's important. They don't have all the answers, and neither do we. And it leaves stuff open for discussion, which is fun. But it also leaves you with emotions you don't usually see in media, at least like this. And we don't know if abstraction is completely undoable, and that's on purpose. You're not supposed to look at it and be like, oh, absolutely, or oh, absolutely not. That's the whole point of it. Because the characters don't know either. It's left sad, very sad, to where you feel that impact. But there is something there, a glimmer of hope it's supposed to be very faint, but completely undeniable. And I think that's what was masterfully pieced in there, like the beautiful cream at the bottom of a jelly donut. That doesn't make sense, but you know what I mean. They don't know if Jax is fully in there or not, or if he can be obtained back. But they look at that sleeping face, and they tell themselves, maybe it can, and they hope. And they're not entirely wrong for that, because it very well could be the case. And that's what makes this story so great. There doesn't always have to be a definitive answer in a story. Some people will say that's bad writing. I really think that's something special. And I'm very glad. And it leaves a lot of things, because I think Jax as a whole is ambiguity. I can't say that, but you know what I mean. Ambiguity incarnate. That's his whole character, and it's done in the best of ways. And I just thought that was something special. I've said it a lot. I'll say it again. I'm glazing this thing hard. Thanks, guys. And the answer, I don't know, but hopefully.